Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another mildly interesting video brought to you for 30 years by the power of sex, friendship, and stock footage. Sailor Moon is an undeniable success for the anime industry, maybe even the entire animation industry, changing it from a teenager high school girl turning into a magic idol singer into a normal teenager high school student being caught up in interstellar war. It has made over 5,000 pieces of merch. It is over 30 years old. Now personally, I did not exist when this show first aired. It was 1992, and I think my parents were still in elementary school at the time. But I discovered the show last year when it was celebrating its 30th anniversary, and at that point, I think I had heard a little bit about Sailor Moon, but I didn't really get invested into it. I was just like, oh, I've heard of this show, I think, but I've never really seen it. And at the time, I was like, you know what? It's over 30 years old. Let's see how it has changed. Is it still good today? 1 year later, and I have completed the first season, and only the first season. I have not touched the R or S or Super S or the Sailor Stars arcs yet. I will get to that, but for this video's sake, I am only going to be talking about the first season. And yes, I am very well aware that I am a 17-year-old boy talking about a kids show made 30 years ago targeted for 7-year-old girls. So sue me. Part 1, the visuals. It is very easy to notice that it was made back in the 1990s, right? Because the colors are pretty simple. You can see the strokes. It feels like at some moments I can see some sort of crayon strokes around the characters. Or maybe that's just me watching Hilda a lot. I don't know. Maybe it is just me. Now it seems like a lot of people have already noticed and already know that the 1992 version looks pretty simplistic. But I was doing some research and I noticed why. Because back then, Sailor Moon surprisingly had a low budget. Despite the success of the Sailor Moon manga, it started off with a low budget. And because of that low budget, this show ended up turning into a stock footage extravaganza. It is very easy to notice the stock footage throughout the episodes. The most notable of these is the transformation sequence, which is so long I bet you could just sleep through the night and you would only still be halfway done.
Moon Prism Power Makeup! Ha! Moon Prism Power Makeup!
Oh god. Another part of the stock footage was the classic "In the Name of the Moon" speech, which comes before the ass-kicking of the episode. Which I think it's a classic. I mean, it's got its own TV tropes page, so it's gotta have some sort of impact. There's also the attacks. Every single attack is pretty much just stock footage. And then whenever they're combining the two attacks, it is so jarring to see. Because one character has a different background, and then the other character has a completely different background. So it's just so easy to notice that this is just pre-made footage. It definitely has showed some of its age, but for me personally, the coloring of the way that the scenes are colored, the animation, the way they're colored, it just makes it aesthetically pleasing to look at. There's just something about it that's just so comforting to watch, and I don't really know why. I am not an expert on color theory, nor have I tried to research color theory. But overall, it does look very simplistic, but the colors just make it so aesthetically pleasing to look at. Part 2, the audio. The instrumentation, the instruments used in the soundtrack is very interesting. It feels like the soundtrack is a mix of rock and brass at the same time for some reason. And it really makes it unique even if most of it is kind of forgettable. You'll just forget about it the moment you're done with the episode. The only piece that I remember is the transformation sequence piece, and that's because I watched that 20 times in a row throughout the entire show. It's present, it's there in every single episode that I remember. So there is that. Overall, it is pretty unique. I really like the instrumentations that they used, but the opening, I don't like it a lot. I'm sorry, I just don't like it a lot. I don't know why, it just like sounds, I guess, annoying to me. Yeah. I don't really know how else to explain this. Part 3, the characters. Usagi's as dumb as a rock. She keeps going into the bad guy's traps even though just 5 seconds before that, she already realized that it's a trap. She keeps falling for these traps every single time even though the cat mentor keeps telling her it's a trap. Please don't do it. She still goes in there. But ironically enough, that is really fun and entertaining to see. Like, you just always know that, like, yeah, she's always gonna just do that dumb stuff. Which is why when she does something smart, you're just like that, you're just celebrating. It's like it's the 4th of July when she actually does something smart. It makes those moments much more unique. I don't know if that's a good thing for the show, but regardless, it is still fun to watch. Even if she is really dumb. All the other characters have their own little quirks as well. I think my favorite would be Sailor Jupiter, just because she's madly in love and also loves a little bit of violence. That really makes her much more unique. Whereas like all the other girls are like more like ladylike, like, hey, we should like approach this methodically. Jupiter's just like, guess who's back, baby? That makes her really memorable. And for Sailor Mercury, the only reason I remember her is because like she's essentially like the hacker man, the Mr. Robot of the entire team. Overall, as a whole, all of the characters are like really fun. They managed to get the job together, they managed to work together. The friendship that they built up was actually pretty nice. And by themselves, the characters and their antics that they get into are still fun to watch. Part 4, the plot. 61% of the entire first season of Sailor Moon was just filler. And once you've already seen like 6 episodes back to back of that filler when you're trying to binge it, at some point it just gets annoying. Because for the most part, like I said in the past part, Usagi is as dumb as a rock. She keeps falling into the bad guy's traps, and it's just constant. And at some points, it just gets infuriating. I skipped like all the filler after like 10 episodes. Now, I actually did some research, and I think I know why there was so much filler in the first place. You see, the Sailor Moon manga started printing in December 1991, and only 3 months later, in March 1992, Toei Animation decided to adapt the manga series into its own anime. The result was that they had to like wait and like stretch out like whatever they had in the first volume of the manga before Naoko Takeuchi, the writer of the Sailor Moon manga, would come out with the next volume of the manga. They had to like stretch it out. The result was that there was just so much filler and so much monsters of the week. And to be fair, the monster of the week format is really interesting. It is really interesting to like see what monsters are gonna pop up, what are they gonna be doing to the citizens, and how is Usagi and the Sailor Guardians going to stop that new threat. It is very interesting, but at some point it just got too much for me. I skipped it after like 10 episodes. Fun fact about the filler. Anytime there is any sort of character development, whether the two characters get closer together, or you think that one of the characters got smarter or dumber, boom! It's all just reset at the very last of the episode because the real change hasn't actually appeared because they need to wait for the next volume of the manga to come out so that they can actually implement the change that they want to implement, just to make sure like it doesn't like just completely deviate from the manga. But enough about the filler, you probably heard other people talk about it. What about the plot? Here's the basic premise of the plot. Usagi Tsukino is a 14-year-old crybaby klutz who just constantly scores low on tests and is always late for class. Somehow. But one day, her life is turned upside down when a black cat with a crescent moon-shaped bald spot on her head appears to her and essentially says, "Hello, Usagi. You're now caught up in interstellar war. Here's a gun." And just like that, she becomes Sailor Moon. And over the course of the entire season, they try to decode the mystery of Tuxedo Man, they find more Sailor Guardians, Usagi still tries to get laid, and it all culminates in a big, massive finale battle with Queen Beryl and Metalia. Now that might sound generic, but there's like some twists like here and there that you're not really expecting. One of them came in episode 23. I was not expecting the anime to like take that direction, but it honestly made the But overall, it was like a really nice touch. I did not expect them to actually do that, but it kind of made it more heartbreaking for me, I guess, in a way. Overall, despite the story kind of being predictable at some points and you just finally going like, oh my goodness, she finally realized what was actually going on or who this person actually is the entire time. Like, you're just constantly going to be like screaming that in some episodes. But for the most part, it is still pretty nice to go through. There are some fresh changes and twists here and there that makes it like kind of unpredictable, like you just don't know what you're going to be expecting for the next episode, or for that episode for that matter. So overall, the plot is still really fun to get through, it still holds up by itself. So what is my final consensus on this? Well, to put it simply, Sailor Moon is not a show where you're going to be constantly screaming, "This is a masterpiece!" The visuals could do some work. The soundtrack can be kind of forgettable sometimes, even though the instrumentation is unique. The opening's not that good in my opinion, but the characters are still really fun to get around, even if they're just kind of like some stock archetypes. The plot is also pretty nice, even though like it's kind of like you can like predict where it's gonna be going. There's always some like nice twist here and there, just make me go like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they actually did that. Overall, I think 30 years later, it is still worth watching. The only thing that I would say that could be improved are the visuals. Considering this, Sailor Moon is over 30 years old. Toei Animation has made so much money out of it just by merchandising and merchandising alone. I think they could very well fund a new refresh of like the new Sailor Moon series. The plot is fine, the characters are fine, the instrumentation and like the soundtrack are honestly pretty fine. But I think if they upgrade the visuals, it could be really amazing to look at. Oh. Well, that comes next time.